Up Main Street, up through Old Main Street, back around Main Street. In Union Street.
Yeah, I'll double check the permit, but he didn't ask for those streets to be closed, so I think he has corner markings there, I think that would be closure he asked for was, so I'll double check.
Yeah, I think 96 is the only closure. It's not from Lake to Cemetery, that's that way. Yeah, they're gonna go down Cuba Street back. They're gonna go.
So, oh,
Cemetery Falls Road.
right,
Yeah. The Main Street closure is from here towards the other direction.
yeah, I'll double check the permit, and I spoke with Chief Nelson about this. So he's gonna put, advanced no parking.
Okay. Well, I will call to order this first regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. Do we have any changes? Bless you, to the agenda. I do have one addition under new business. We have a renewal contract with Municipal Solutions, our fiscal advisor, which we will want to consider. Item number 3 is our consent agenda. We have 2 abstracts as well as meeting minutes from our May 13th meeting. We have abstract number 13 from the end of our last most recently completed fiscal year. General fund abstract totaling $164,971.11. We have EMS billing abstract totaling $3,753.80. Water fund abstract totaling $57,776.73. Sewer fund abstract totaling $12,900.98. And trust and agency totaling $4,442.07. And then we have our first abstract from the new fiscal year, which started this month. General fund abstract totaling $49,493.19. Water fund totaling $8,058.38. Sewer totaling $12,919.76. And trust and agency totaling $53,316.06. We have 2 consortium payments in that one. And so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Second,
Any questions, comments, or need to pull something from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, we have our first public comment period. One member of the public online. You 2 don't count because you're here for a different reason. Maureen, you are just in time for our first public comment period. If you would like to say anything now or wait until the end of the meeting, that's up to you.
I just have a question about the grassroots contract, so want to hear now or?
Sure. Why not? If you're ready, or we can come back to you.
Just in reading the contract that you have, first thing I saw that past due date for billing, is a 2023 date.
Typo.
Yeah, so they owe a lot of money into.
Yeah.
Penalty to 2023. And I wonder what the rate was in comparison to normal rates. It says 77.03 per meter location. Per 77.03 is per how much?
So they have 1 meter that they will be connecting to one of our fire hydrants on Falls Road. And they're charged our outside rate and a half.
But 77.03 for how much water is it? Just
So it's it includes the first 1,000 gallons, and then there's a rate in there for every 1,000 gallons thereafter.
Okay,
So similar to the way our inside and outside billing works, but they get the outside rate.
okay. And if there is an issue, item 9 says if there's an issue with water cannot be provided, that they need to shut down.
That would be a decision of the Tompkins County Health Department. If we, for any reason, can't supply the water, then we have the right to shut it off.
If they're gonna like it.
What they do from there is honestly not our headache.
Number 8, all licenses and permits have been obtained, but I would assume they need to prove that they have water to get those, so there's a conditional permit that they would stay up to show them.
Right. And then they send us all of their approved permits before the festival starts.
There's it, thanks.
Sure. One more member of the public joining us online. We are in our first public comment period. If anyone has a comment or a question, there is another public comment period at the end of the meeting. Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
How about now? Got me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, guys. I had a question about, I know there's going to be some stormwater work coming down Congress Street. I guess a general question, if there is going to be stormwater work going down adjacent to your property, is there an opportunity for us to tie in our sump or yard drainage into that system? And what would the protocol be?
Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah.
Want to use the mic?
Definitely, that's the whole idea behind putting the drainage in, is so that residents can tie in. As far as when, once we're tied in and done, I would guess that's when you would be able to tie in your private drainage into it. The only concern would be, you know, if we've got it back before or after backfilling to make it easier. That's kind of going to be a question of if the contractor wants to backfill as we go along, and maybe working with them, because I don't know how soon you'd be able to contract with somebody to put your drainage to tie into it. So that's kind of going to be a as we go type thing.
Okay, I mean, I guess, yeah, that's what I was thinking, was be a lot. I'd rather just have one hole than two holes. You know, if we can just do it all at the same time, that seemed to, when it was open, it seemed to make sense that would be the time to tie it in.
Yeah, that would make the most sense if we can line it up.
Okay.
That'll all depend on when we officially get started on the project.
All right, well, keep in touch, I guess. Thanks.
Yep, you bet. Any other public comments or questions? All right. Item number 5 is reports from representatives. Ann Corman did text me earlier to let me know she's a little under the weather and won't be joining us. And I don't see anyone from the town. So why don't we? Do you want to have Matt do any presentation, or do you want to tie that in when we get to talk about it?
I think we can just do it when we get there.
All right, item number 6 is reports from this board, as well as the clerk and treasurer's office. The only items I have are a couple of acknowledgements. Sandy List has been our village historian for several years now. I think it's got to be 10. I have to go back and look. It's been quite some time, and she's done a fantastic job as our historian. We've gotten a number of new historic plaques around the village due to her efforts. Sandy informed me a couple of weeks ago that she will be stepping down as our village historian. So I do want to take the opportunity to thank Sandy. Thank you, Sandy. If you happen to be watching or to see this video, thank you for all of your efforts for the village over the years. We really appreciate it. And if you, Sandy, or anyone else within the sound of my voice knows anyone who would like to be our next village historian, please encourage them to reach out to me. The other acknowledgement I wanted to make is I was out of town and unable to attend the dedication of the commemorative bench to Chief Ferretti in the front of the village office this weekend. Chief Nelson tells me that it was well done and a very, very nice ceremony. I think we have some pictures, which hopefully we'll be able to put up at some point. But a nice, nice memento, a nice commemoration of an individual who likewise gave, in his case, decades of service to the village of Trumansburg. And then last but certainly not least, I wanted to thank the organizers of Porch Fest. I did make it back for the end of Porch Fest on Saturday, and it was every year it gets bigger and there are more people milling around the village, and it's great to see. I had people that I've never met before who are from out of town who came into town for Porch Fest. And then quite a few people commenting, especially with the nice weather, commenting how nice it is to see that much foot traffic in the village and what a wonderful event it is. So this was year number, we missed 2020. So 17, 18, 19, 21, 2, 3, 4, year number 7. So we're excited to see each year's growth. So to all involved, and particularly Nana Monaco and Michelle Matrani, thank you for putting together another wonderful Porch Fest. So that's it from my end. We'll move on to fire. Marcia.
Not too much to report. We had 34 calls. Jason Fulton gave out the Con scholarship to senior night, and Auden Gruber Hine got one of the scholarships, and Lucy Okama. Lucy, total underachiever. She had accolades beyond accolades, and we were so happy to give Auden, who's been very active in the fire company, a scholarship as well. They are continuing with grip hoist training to get ready for the gorge season, which we always have 1 or 2 events there. They're in airbag training. Last year, our portable pond system went defunct, and it's really old. And it is the piece of equipment that attaches the pond onto the truck. So the cost of that right now is running about $9,200. They said that they would put out for more estimates, but it's kind of like a proprietary item, and not many companies manufacture that piece of equipment. So that's just coming down the road. It would come out from the fire equipment reserve, which has about $142,000 in it. So that's something that they're going to get us some more quotes for that to see where we stand with that. So other than that, pretty calm. That was all the exciting issues with fire company.
When does he expect to have those quotes?
He said within the next 2 or 3 weeks he'll have them. He said they've been operating without that piece of equipment for a while, and they had some issues with fires at the lake that gets really tricky. What happened was a tree fell on a cable wire, and the cable wire fell on electric wire, and it caught like a couple of cottages on fire, or houses on fire. And he said it just gets really so hard to
Get a lot of trucks done.
get a lot of trucks down there and get things where they need to be. So I think they thought it was kind of time that we looked at that piece of equipment and got that operational again.
Okay. EMS Youth and Street Tree Advisory Committee.
We'll start with the EMS calls, 11 in Covert, 8 in Town Factor, 1 in Interlake, 4 in the city of, 1 in Mecklenburg, 1 in Ovid. Or actually 2 in Ovid, 2 in Romulus, 33 in the village, and 26 in Ulysses. Total for the month is 88. About average. Aside from that, I don't have much to report, but there's a number of sort of things that I just wanted to touch base on for the updates. Joel and I have been building out what we're aiming to make a complete replacement schedule. We have truck replacement schedules. Since Joel has taken over, we realized we don't have replacement schedules for things like our auto pumps, which also have a fairly hefty price tag. That's what we talked about a couple months back. So we started that out, which is going well so far, although it's kind of frightening to see it all in one spot. We are also finally getting to the review for a new billing company, which has been on hold for a little while, but hopefully we'll be meeting next Monday with various representatives of the towns to go over and see if they can come up with a recommendation or if they have any input to provide there. And then Joel and I will sort of put all of that together and bring it back to this board for a decision. And lastly, Joel has been looking and reviewing EMS wages. So no strong or hard and fast recommendation from him yet on that, but I think just as a data point, at this point, we're struggling to keep up with target and fast food wages for our EMTs. So there's a clear need. And so those are sort of the underway things, we'll say. Quick update on the skate program. We had Dan here, was it last month, 2 months ago? And having looked at the site during market hours and gone back and forth to some of the market board members, it doesn't seem feasible really at all to have a program there during market hours. Still going back and forth a little bit with Dan to see if there might be alternatives or how to go from there, but at least that proposal just really seems logistically impossible. So we gave it a try, but I think it'll be back to the drawing board on that. I also haven't updated everyone on fast chargers, that project, in some time. It still exists. There is no update. We were re-awarded the money, as I mentioned, I'm sure 6 or 7 months ago now. Still just waiting for a contract from DEC. And we'll see how it goes. Another piece that I wanted to update everyone on is that I had mentioned a couple months ago that we were putting together the village forest management program. The idea being that unlike years past, where the street tree committee has done an inventory of all of the village trees, this year we'd sort of turn it over to residents to apply. So if you think you have a dangerous tree or you know of one, reach out to Jess, find our website. It's under the stack page. There's an application. And we'll take a look and see if you qualify for some, it's not very large, but some financial help to make that happen. And one last thing is that we have partnered with the town to contract with Cornwall Cooperative Extension to extend the Citizen Pruners program, which has happened in Ithaca for many, many years. So in the next month or so, Jess will get you some information for the newsletter, but there will be an opportunity for anyone and everyone to come and train. I'm hoping Dusty and some of his crew, I know some of the town highway guys will come and do some of that training. So we'll see more to come on all fronts.
Okay. EMS. We just did that. DPW, water, sewer, CPCR, and farmers market.
Yes. All right. I'm gonna go a little out of order since we've got some folks here to help talk through some of these. I think I'll start with the WQIP grant. So maybe I can turn it over to you, Matt, if you want to just give a little update on what that grant is and what we're going for and that sort of thing.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. August 2023 last year, we submitted an engineering report to DEC and EFC. It was an engineering planning grant to look at the sanitary sewer collection system. We've talked about it many times over the years since the wastewater treatment plant improvement project. And the village has stormwater that makes its way into the sanitary collection system. At the wastewater treatment plant itself, there's a permitted flow that the village has to meet. That's a parameter. And oftentimes the village has exceeded that monthly average. We can look at water production on the drinking water side, correlate that with the flow at the wastewater treatment plant, as well as look at the spikes from your average day to your peak day or peak hourly. And that is an indicator of, the volume of I&I that's in your system. That obviously exceeding that monthly average is a violation on the permit. It's not a water quality standard violation, but it is a violation of the permit. So we've made a recommendation for slip lining portions of the sanitary sewer pipes themselves, as well as doing a rehab and rehabilitation program for the manholes. We've been working with DPW annually, looking at taking the top priority manholes off that list to kind of chip away at what we found in the report. But what the WQIP proposal here for a grant application would be to go into the WQIP, that's a water quality improvement program through New York State DEC. That program has the potential for up to a 75% grant award. So that total project cost that we developed as part of the engineering report was about $2.5 million. So with a 75% grant, you'd be up to about $1.875 million. So that program we feel has been probably the most suitable for the work that we're looking at here. And we've had good success with it. So the proposal we have tonight is for $5,200 and would be doing the grant writing an application that would be due in July 31 or July 31st to meet that deadline. It is a competitive program. There's $75 million through the WQIP for the state. There's various different programs throughout, but we'd be applying through the general wastewater portion of that. Sanitary sewer overflows are one of the priorities that DEC is looking at, and the village has had some overflows at the plant that not great, but certainly helps support a strong application.
Great, thank you.
Any questions for Matt from the board? Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Well, then I would move that we, I guess, accept this proposal from MRB and authorize Warden to sign.
Second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll get a signed copy to you. Would you like our copy?
Yes.
You've got one, that'd be great.
And so then from there, I'll actually go to the, let's see, look at the agenda real quick. We had called this the stormwater remediation section. So this is a follow-on from a grant we received from the state quite a few years back now, and it's taken some time to work through other parts of how to best apply that money. This was the section I think Tony was referring to. There's another section of stormwater infrastructure we'd like to put in to use the rest of the funds that we got from the state. And so in the Dropbox, there are 2 quotes for materials. And then I don't know, Dusty, if you have quotes for labor either, but actually maybe I should take a step back. The idea here is we need to put in some stormwater infrastructure. We as the village can purchase the materials for that at kind of state prices and that sort of a thing and save some money there, and then hire out the installation effort. So it's kind of like a two-parter situation. So we do have quotes for the materials. And then I guess I'll turn it over to Dusty for the labor piece.
This is kind of the part that's been drawing this out, is getting a couple people to come out and give me quotes in a timely fashion. I've been in touch with Corey Elmore, who put in or attempted to put in a bid on the original project. And he has given me a verbal quote of around 20 grand to do the work. And I'm waiting on Jim Proctor from PNS Excavating right now to come give me another quote. He's going through some health issues, so it has been hit or miss on getting him out here. With that said, when I talked to him last, he thought he could come in around that price. So as soon as I can get them to actually print me out something and come through, I think we can cover it. And I was talking with Ben a little earlier. I talked with our New York State representative from CHIPS. It's a state funding through, they provide stuff for roads. We usually use it to pave our roads, but it can also be used for, we just found out in the last 6 months, it can be used for equipment, or I talked to her today and it can be used for drainage stuff. So I believe that any of this remaining work that doesn't fall under the DASNY money can be covered with CHIPS. CHIPS covers a broad range. There's 4 different categories, actually. They can all be used to help cover roadside drainage. So I think we have potential really to hit the Congress Street section this year with that, with what we budgeted this year. And then with what we budget going through next year, I think we can safely say we can finish the Seneca Street portion next year. Once we've accomplished the Congress Street section, because we need that done first to be able to tie the Seneca Street section into. But the pricing for the materials, the pipe pricing is separate, or came through on 2. The actual manhole risers and grates only came through on the 1 because I couldn't get another company that was able to provide the specific dimensions of what we needed. But the pipe most likely come through separately. It was less than half the price because they have a state contract pricing through it. So
Yeah, so I guess then what we'll do tonight is approve purchasing all the materials, and then
Yeah.
as you get quotes for
Yeah.
installation, we can have another conversation on
Yeah.
that.
I'd like to find a third
Yeah,
candidate for doing the labor, at least getting a third quote.
yeah. that'd be
But
fantastic.
I'm having trouble as it is getting people to commit to getting back to me.
Right.
So
So does this second quote, does that include?
both quotes include the pipe pricing, sorry. Only the Johnny's wholesale quote includes the manhole risers, lids,
So we've
rings.
got to separate that out.
Yeah,
So I can't remember the name of the quote. That's just the pipe.
the Blair supply.
Blair Supply. They don't supply.
I understand that, but if we're going to
Um,
approve something, we need a full dollar.
So I can get
Yeah, I'll get that out.
I can get a renewed quote from Johnny's Wholesale just to include the manholes and the risers and
So
stuff.
then we're not going to approve these tonight then.
Well,
Unless you want to just approve that portion of it. I don't know whether that's possible.
I'd like to say that we can approve that. And it would be for $4,791.75 for all of the equipment on there minus the solid pipe.
What was that number?
$4,791.75.
So just for those keeping score at home, back in 18? Been a minute.
Might have been a little after that, I think. I don't think it was that far back. I want to say like maybe 19.
20, somewhere just before 2020.
Yeah.
Seems like a long
Pre-pandemic.
time ago. We were awarded a grant from then Assembly Member Lifton for was a total 140,000
Something in that range.
for some stormwater remediation. We ended up with MRB's help targeting different areas, mostly on the north side of the village. The stipulations on the money is that it has to be in village right of way. It can't be private property drainage issues, and we spent a total of, did we get to 100? I don't think we got to 100.
We've got about 45 left.
Yeah,
So
so
maybe
just shy of 100 was what was spent on the first section. We still have the 40 and change left, and that's what we're spending on the next section. And now that we know that we can use CHIPS money for a little bit, that's very helpful. So, so did you want to approve?
Yeah, so I would move that we approve the Johnny Hosil quote for all of the material except for the solid pipe for a total of $4,791.75. This is coming from, I assumed this is coming from the storm sewers contractual. I don't know if that was the right one. I was trying to look for which one that comes from.
Yeah, it would be storm sewers.
That was,
It's already been funded by the grant.
It's a reimbursable grant.
Okay.
yeah, this will be reimbursed, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor of accepting the partial Johnny's wholesale quote for a total of $47.91.75, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And then I would move that we accept the full quote from Blair Supply Corp for $13,200 for pipe.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this one?
Is that the same pipe that was on the other quote? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
They just had to break it.
Why was it so such a huge?
They have a state negotiated
Negotiated price.
price.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
All right. Matt, you're free to hang around, but I think that was all we needed your input on. Keep moving forward with other equipment purchases. Spending a lot of DPW money tonight, so we can do the truck quote first. That is, this is, actually I'll ask Dusky to kind of give more of a, what the truck is and the thought about behind it, but this is a state contract quote price for a new replacement truck for the DPW.
Yeah, it's just a replacement pickup truck. We're doing the replace one this year. This is the truck actually that had the engine replaced last year, so. Making sure we get that truck out of our fleet. It's one of our main plow trucks, and solid trucks right now, so, that's just a pickup truck.
And this would come out of, so this is gonna come out of DPW equipment reserve, so we'll need a permissive referendum. And you had said for 45,000, the quote is for just shy of 55, but we'll have a trade-in to make the difference.
So really the truck was trading in, they offered us 20 grand for it, so. The permissive referendum, just to make sure you don't go over.
Right, and then I think actually there is permissive referendum draft in the Dropbox, if I recall, so. I'll read that out. It says, oh, this is the,
This is a reference, you just make it.
Yeah, so got it. So I will move that we, well, I've lost how to word these things. We spend up to $45,000 from the DPW equipment reserve for the purchase of a pickup truck, subject to permissive referendum.
Second.
any questions or comments? Again, it looks like the spend will actually be only 35-ish after the trade-in value on the old truck.
Do they do any of the plow mounting and stuff, or do you have to go do that separately? That's nice.
So,
All right, if there are no other comments or questions, all in favor of approving spending up to $45,000 from the DPW Equipment Reserve for the purchase of a new pickup, subject to permissive referendum, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so 30 days from today is June only has 30 days, so July 10th.
All right, going right down the list. The next one on the list is what we call this, the mini excavator quote. So that's also in the Dropbox 60 III, and this is also state contract quote. And then this is another place where we've learned that we can apply CHIPS funding. So I don't know, Dusty, if you want to say anything more. Yeah, that'd be helpful.
I know we have the backhoe and that does the majority of our work, but with the extent of where we've been headed, potentially with some issues down at the park and having to travel, it's been necessary to almost have a second piece of equipment, because if we have to drive our backhoe down to the state park to dig, and then we have to drive our backhoe back to the village to load up stone, and we have to drive our backhoe back down to the hole to fill, and you see how this, the 6-hour job turns into a 12-hour job just by having to drive back and forth. The last time this happened, the town was generous enough to let us borrow their backhoe, so we didn't have to, but that's not always available. And with CHIPS funds, with us learning that CHIPS funds can be used for this, we have a rather large buildup of CHIPS money after the last 3 or 4 years. We would like to do this, especially since this will be much more usable for projects such as sidewalk. We have some more sections we'd like to replace, and trying to fit a smaller machine into areas where we can, where we need to be specifically a section over here, get a mini excavator in with a lot easier than trying to use our backhoe. It makes jobs like ditching twice as fast. So we really found this need for a smaller secondary piece of equipment, as opposed to renting something that, you know, we've in the past, especially with sidewalk projects, we've rented from a local contractor, and it works, but it's expensive. And like I said, with the CHIPS funds being available, this is, I think, the right time to jump on this piece of equipment. So.
Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean when you say the CHIPS funds are available? Like, is this guaranteed money that we have yet to apply for?
Well, so the way it works is we have to purchase it, and then we get reimbursed with CHIPS funds. And I submit to New York State for the fund, or, you know, I send them the quote, the list also, and they say, yes, this is an approved item that you can purchase with your CHIPS money. And then they reimburse us.
But there is like effectively kind of a bank account that they're holding for us. There's a dollar amount that they say.
Our CHIPS fund specific, so there's 4, CHIPS is just one of them. Our CHIPS fund right now has $247,000 in it. Our Pave New York line has $102,000 in it. Our EWR, which is Emergency Winter Relief Fund, has around $60,000 in it, and our POP, which stands for Pave Our Potholes Fund, has $30,000 in it. Nothing we can't do with the Pave Your Potholes Fund is pave potholes. So Miranda Roth from New York State DOT expressed that you can't actually fill potholes with that line, but that's what they call it. You get paid roads, but you can't pass roads.
That feels like an exceptionally large pot of money to just have, like I'm
So
having trouble grappling with this.
every municipality has a fund, it's, you know, obviously not the same amount. It's all based off of the road lane miles that your municipality has.
Right.
And they award you money every year in May, beginning of May. And you can roll it, to either save it. Part of why ours is so large is because I'm also trying to pave South Street. which is, the longest road we have in the village to pave. And we've been waiting to pave it until the truck traffic is done. So it's been building for 2 or 3 years. So we have, and, you know.
But if there's different funds and one is for paving and one is for equipment, then that shouldn't.
There, so CHIPS funds and EWR can basically be used for any of these different, I have a whole packet at the shop, they can be used for.
So those are
culverts, they can be
interchangeable.
used for guardrails, they can be used, but we didn't find out about a lot of this, we've always just used CHIPS for paving roads in the
Right.
past. The other portion of this is anything you purchase with CHIPS funds has to be kept for 10 years. Basically, any road we pay with CHIPS funds, we can't do anything to that
Right.
road for 10 years. This piece of equipment we're gonna buy, we have to keep it for 10 years. We're never gonna put enough hours on the machine in 10 years.
Right.
To worry about that portion of it, but it's a fund that's there that, you know, we, Miranda actually came and met with this, she's the director of this program, the CHIPS program, she met with us at the fire hall
It was there.
a month ago, yeah. And Tanya Ulysses also came and sat with us to learn about it. It was very informative. She really knows her stuff.
It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
So you submitted this quote to them and pre-approved it?
Yes, CHIPS is already, Miranda's already approved it to CHIPS, so basically, once we purchase it and I submit her the form that I have to fill out, they reimburse every 3 months, quarterly. They reimburse, so.
All right, 2 quick questions. Doesn't impact our long-term replacement and paving schedule.
Not at all.
Does it have a thumb?
Yes,
So
and until the ditch bucket.
It's the first line.
Yeah,
out
it's
of
the mother.
the hydraulic pump.
is it? How did I miss that?
Uh,
I didn't scroll down.
Triple line.
Static.
Yeah. Lifting power, like trees.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you gonna get a trailer
We had a trailer.
that'll carry? Really?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Bought a trailer in April. We needed a bigger trailer, or the trailer that we've had, the little blue trailer that's down there that is 12 foot long and hauls our lawnmowers is also what we use to haul lumber or 20-foot lengths of culverts, like is not safe. So we got a deal in April on buying a year-old model trailer that just meets the also weight hauling capacity for this mini that we would like. So yes, we have a trailer.
It's exciting.
Any other questions or comments for Dusty? You know who's gonna be the most disappointed?
Yes, I do.
Hmm?
I haven't dared ask yet.
You're gonna wanna wait before you let him know.
Yeah,
If there are no other, you're gonna,
Yeah, did I make a motion? If I did, I'll make a motion that we approve the Mini X quote from Milton. And that would come out of the street maintenance CHIPS line. For eventual reimbursement from CHIPS.
any comments or questions from the board?
Feels like a big enough. It's very exciting.
Yeah, the CHIPS, understanding CHIPS better has opened up a couple of interesting.
This is like the toddler in me is very excited to be clear. Nothing to do with it.
Fair enough.
if anybody asks, I can, Brandon is willing to come down at any point to talk to me, like, she really knows her stuff, and I also have a packet, if you just wanna stop down, I can show you. You know, that kind of goes over a lot of what it covers, well.
All right, if there are no additional comments or questions, all in favor of approving the purchase of a Caterpillar Mini X with CHIPS funding, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay,
All right.
next up,
Last piece of DPW water sewer conversation is a summer hire. So we did budget for a summer hire this year. Dusty listed that position. We had exactly one applicant who is someone we would like to hire. So the application is in the Dropbox. If there's any questions, we can talk through that, and then I can make a motion to hire Brandon Lee Kelly. And the thought there is to do $18.50 an hour. That is basically living wage, which is something we've been trying to keep up with, though, boy, it might jump a lot very soon, and we will have to figure out how we wrestle with that. Dusty, if you want to say anything briefly, maybe?
Motion. Go ahead, Dust.
Basically, the thought here is to help us hire somebody to take care of the smaller stuff, the day-to-day mowing. I don't know how much everybody's been filling up a lot of the projects we've been taking on. The main office renovation, we just put a new roof on our well building, we just redid the roof on our shop building, built the little storage shed for the teacher water. We're trying to take on some of these bigger projects, but in doing so, you know, it makes it difficult to send two guys around to do the lawn mowing, which is really a two-man job, or two men to do the brush root pickup, even though that's only one day working usually. This allows us to have somebody through our busy summer months they can just, you know, oversee the mowing and brush pickup and stuff, and allow Clinton and, you know, Daniel or myself to get to work on some of these bigger projects. We have one on the booth to put on the booster station building for the well one system. We have a huge slew of water main valves we'd like to get to replacing this year. Those are full day jobs. We have 8 of them to do this summer. There's a lot of bigger projects we're trying to work on. So having summer help ease a lot.
Yeah, the lawn mowing is just never ending, and without having someone take some of that off, there's just no way of doing the real preventative maintenance and other sorts of work
The
that,
water main valves are.
yeah, we just haven't been able to get to those before, and we do need to start working on those. So then I'll make a motion that we hire Brandon Lee Kelly for do you have dates for
The
Start-
summer position is from June 1 to
That's
August 31 right now. I think that we can put in potentially to have that changed, but at least for now, it's June 1 to August 31.
and do you know when he would start, seeing as we're in June already?
I don't. I know basically right now he just works for so maybe probably very soon.
All right. Well, hire Brandon Lee Kelly at $18.50 an hour through August 31st. Starting as soon as he's able. I don't know if that's good enough.
I'll second it.
friendly amendment, just to be clear that we're hiring Mr. Kelly as a seasonal DPW employee.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay.
All right, one last bit of conversation. Hopefully this is not too drawn out. I think I forwarded this email to everyone on the board, but say it out loud. You can think about the farmers market area. There's the hillside that goes up to 96. And during the market times, that is a very frequently used area for kids to play in, and an area that I think more people in the village, the farmers market folks would like to prevent that to some degree. And so the thought that the farmers market folks have is to put a very small little, like those little like metal fences, you know, they're like yay tall, and do some plantings up there, kind of make it a thing. This is a pollinator space. This is for the bees and the birds and whatever, as a way to both brighten that up and encourage kids to keep off of it. I asked them, I said I wanted to bring it before the board and see if we had any concerns with that. I don't personally have any concerns, but I want to check in here, and if we don't have any concerns, I'm happy to let them know that they're free to do some plantings and that sort of idea up there. If there's any other guidance or direction we wanted to give them, we could obviously do that as well.
I think it's great.
Yeah,
That's
good idea.
Yeah, they've been doing a really wonderful job of being smart and conscientious on how to corral the children. For those that, there used to be a lot of fighting with swords out of sticks, which was no one's favorite thing. They now have a bunch of pool noodles that the kids are using instead, which is great. They can run around and whack each other. No one gets hurt. You aren't going to tell kids not to run around and hit each other, but you know, at least you can give them soft objects. So they've been really thoughtful and smart about how to make sure everyone's having a good time and staying safe. All right, I will pass that back to them.
The only thought that I have is depending how far up that slope they go. I think they'd run into any right of way issues with
Hmm.
DOT, not that DOT's not gonna, if they put any objects up there, it would be an issue.
Right.
think
I can-
themselves.
I don't think they're gonna do that, but I'll make sure to point out, just stay far enough away from the road, so it's not a problem for anybody.
Yeah, other than that, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think part of it is just preventing the children from starting to climb.
Right,
So
I think-
even if it were that close, I don't think,
I think they'll only need a little bit of planting, just to,
because they do get up there, and I've seen a lot of kids cross the
Yeah.
metal thing.
yeah, the kids are up around the guardrail and they're getting too far up there for sure.
That's not a great idea. Okay, good.
All right, then with that, I will finally wrap up.
Okay. Police, sure.
This is not as exciting. So from Chief Nelson's report, there were 124 calls for May. Not too many criminal investigations. They included fraud, physical disputes, theft, harassment, and 3 motor vehicle crashes. There were also some non-criminal investigations, 40 property checks, 18 officer initiated stops, 10 traffic tickets, 23 informational inquiries and background checks for pistol permit applications. Those are conducted by Tompkins County SD. There were a few other things. I did ask Chief Nelson to start including some of the things that they detail that are not included on this, like participation in community events. So some of the things that they did were, there was a bike ride to school day, which happens every year. They've been doing it for a while, and that took place last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. They also participated in the Rotary Duck Race, the Memorial Day Parade. They helped with the 5K fun run. And then, of course, Porch Fest that just passed. So some of the things that we talked about last time that we're looking into, so I briefly stated that our law enforcement received a grant from the Division of Criminal Justice Service for $90,000. So I went over some of those things with Chief Nelson. They did include some things that we have already purchased, like the electric bicycle. So I think part of that is trying to figure out if that is considered a reimbursement, or if those, although those funds were designated for that item, if they can be used for something else. I think the largest ticket item would be updating our security cameras, around $33,000. So we will be getting quotes in for a lot of those items soon for approval. Some items were under $3,000, but I will still bring them up as I get that information. Let's see, there was one more thing. Oh, yeah, we talked about also some paint work and carpet work, and then doing some carpentry within the office just to make it a little bit more safe and to bring it more up to date. There is, of course, issues with scheduling, like how do you move out the entire police department? You can't really close. So my suggestion was get something on the calendar and then try to figure those things out later. So we'll see if that happens probably in the winter time when there's less activity. And I think that's all I have today.
The clerk treasurer's office.
Okay, so I'm just gonna piggyback on Joanna, Trustee Haynes there, who is absolutely correct with the, Gorgeous Half Marathon is happening on June 23rd. And the streets will be closed from Lake Street to Street. So we'll make some announcement in the newsletter, which everyone can sign up for online, Trumansburg-NY.gov, so where you get all your information about the office. There also, we will be supporting the water station for the AIDS Rise for Life, which is happening in September. We just approved that. New banners are being designed for Main Street. As you recall, we have banners for the 150th. That are those nice 3 colors. We're going to make seasonal ones that can be used every year. And that will come out of the EPC budget. The mayor already the reference. Mentioned, of course, Fest was a success, and I just wanted to highlight the 50 dance this year. So congratulations to that team. And then the most exciting things, the numbers. The tax statements went out. People are paying. Thanks so much. Reminder to everyone, you can pay without penalty through July 1st by postmark. July 1st by dropping it off, July 1st by paying online. Noting, of course, if you pay online, that there's a third party fee that does not go to the village. You can also pay with e-check. And other exciting money, piggyback to Harbor, the EV chargers. I took a webinar about elected pay. So there's a recognition that municipalities that are tax-free don't enjoy the benefit of tax credits in the same way as other organizations do. And so, and I can transfer this information to you, Ben, there is money in a bucket available for projects that pertain to EV chargers and environmental concerns. It was brought to the mayor's attention, the governor's office, webinar. So it's pretty cool, but it's again, if you spend it, then you get it back. But you can get up to 30% or $100,000 project. I'll send you all that information and the slides. Definitely was relevant to the charger program. Working on closing up the fiscal year, which as we all know, did the 31st. I have an 8 fund reconciled, but I want to do the accounts before I send it out, the ledgers before I send it out. Working on water and sewer, which will then bring us to looking at budget modifications, encumbering some money for police purchases. And then any other adjustments that need to be made. So you probably do, would you do that at the second June meeting? Or would you do that in July? Does it matter? Do it in July. July, okay, I like that answer. What else? Also, let's see, the next thing on my list after closing up the fiscal year is to look at the personnel policy, which was a project with the mayor and the board last year. And I think now we have a good environment, shareable environment to start to work on that and move it forward. It doesn't need all the work, but it's so we'll get some feedback from department heads and bring it to the board to review. But the actual most important thing is sitting to my right. This is Deputy Clerk and Deputy Trustee Jessica Weber, who joined us on May 13th, and they're now joining us at our first board meeting. And she can speak for herself, but she is spearheading the OSHA and the New York State safety training program that we're required to do. There's an online portal. Folks were introduced to it last year, but it will be fully adopted this year. Take it away.
So we have, I think we have everybody signed, pretty much signed in, activated, ready to go. Everybody's been enrolled in their courses.
Yeah.
You guys are doing.
Yeah, it was brought to our attention this time from a training that Dusty went through for the DPW, which is great help, so.
Yes, so shortly, I think everybody should be up to date on what they're.
We'll send out the welcome email tomorrow, in touch with the department heads and then Jeff, they can make sure they have all the resources. And she's great. Yeah, that's all. Questions, considerations? Things you'd like to do or?
Okay. Item number 7 is old business. We need to have a conversation, folks. And by folks, I mean folks on this board. We had a nice visit from Congressman Molinaro last week. Visited the current fire hall. We talked about the funding that we've received through the through his and Senators Schumer and Gillibrand's congressional appropriation for $3.5 million for a new fire and EMS facility. It is open-ended. There isn't a deadline. It's being administered through USDA, who is in, I guess that's a good thing. They are in regular contact with MRB saying, hey, when are you gonna get started? Not pressuring necessarily, but just here's the process. Let us know when you want to actually start moving forward. They did in a USDA in a conversation last week with MRB did let us know that because of the, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, because of the classification of the award, we are automatically eligible for sounds like an unlimited borrow for any differential at a lower interest rate, lower than market interest rate. I think they said 3%. As long as the facility is located within village limits, which it would be. We have also an open grant application with New York State for an additional 1.5 million, which would be allocated to volunteer fire companies only. That's, we'd have to very carefully say this is for their side of the building, not the EMS side. And I've been talking to Chief Taylor and Deputy Chief Shearer in particular about the fire company doing a targeted capital campaign, requesting additional funding of larger local institutions, not necessarily going to individual folks, although we wouldn't preclude individual folks who wanted to donate to the fire company. Obviously, the village can't do fundraising, but the fire company can. So that's what's out there. My thought is this. There's one version of this movie where we wait until we have all of the money necessary. You know, the original quote from 2021 was 7.5 to 8 million for the new building. That's obviously a lot higher now. So there's a version of this movie that says we wait until we have all of the checks in the mail, at least if not in the bank. That could mean we never build a new building. The other version of this novella that I'm suggesting we move forward with is encourage the fire company to do capital campaign style fundraising. Keep our fingers crossed that we get the V Fire grant, which I think we're probably well qualified, well positioned for, but we never know. But then move forward with securing an official, a formal agreement to locate the building on a particular site. We don't have anything in writing with respect to that. And then move forward with securing loans and lines of credit necessary to build it. Worst case scenario is we don't get the V Fire grant and no one donates to the fire company, then we have 3.5 million and we'll have to revise the plans to get that number down to 6 or 7. And then we borrow. Best case scenario, we get the V Fire grant, now we're at 5. We get a couple of large local institutions to donate a few $100,000 each, maybe we're at 6. And now we only really have to borrow, let's say 2. That's my suggestion. $2 million at 3% over 30 years is about 300 and some thousand a year. That would obviously be spread out over the fire and EMS budgets and shared with our town partners. Part of this process would be educating them on what we're doing and why and how, so that if we can phase in as we start developing our fire and EMS budget this fall, if we can phase into some of that, it won't be a single year shock when that first loan payment is due. These are all the things that over the last few weeks I've been thinking about. It would be better to get the ball rolling than wait. And the reality is, and we've talked about this, the reality is this: back in 2016, we had a quote to retrofit the existing fire hall. The quote was $1.5 million, and we had a lot of people show up to a meeting and say we don't need it. That was wrong then, but it's even more wrong now. This fire department and this EMS department is irreplaceable in this particular region of the Finger Lakes, and giving them the facilities that they need to operate properly is a hill to die on. And what exactly that means in terms of actual dollars will come down to, revised engineering plans. And once things go out to bid, fortunately, Chief Taylor happens to be in the profession of large scale project management. So he'll be able to lend his expertise in making sure that, the electrical contractor's quote with a 20% contingency probably doesn't need a 20% contingency if the electrical contractor knows what they're doing, kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at, and I'm looking for board input, board feedback. This is not that there are enough zeros in this particular project for me not to go rogue and just go do it, and then let you all know after the fact what's going on. So I wanted to get anyone's input.
I mean, there is a way to get the ball rolling without being in for an $8 or $10 million buy, right? Like, we don't have engineering, we don't have any architectural or any of that stuff. Right, like, we don't have any. To me, it feels reasonable to sort of start that ball rolling while we try and, get those checks in the mail. And gives us some time to have the conversations come August, September, when we meet the towns.
We have some start of some, site plan and building detail, enough to spec out some cost estimates. But you're right, we don't have specific engineering, we don't have architecture, but all of that's going to cost money that we're going to be starting to spend. Before we spend it, we're basically the way I envision this working, if we move forward now, is giving MRB the green light to open the funding, basically opening the funding line to the grant, so that we can start to spend out of it for things like engineering and architectural. Yeah. But then we are effectively committing ourselves to the process.
Is there a clock that starts when we start spending money?
No. But I think if we spend $200,000 on engineering and architecture and then we don't build the building pretty well, I think that's an issue. And I'm sure there's lots of wiggle room and there's lots of stuff in there, right?
Yeah, and if the worst case were, we decided we still don't want to do it, then maybe we have to pay that amount back. I don't know how that would work, but there's always, like, I think where it sounds like you're coming from, Ben, is like every step is a step. We get to make decisions along the way. I think you're right. Once we start opening it, we're kind of committed in a direction, but there's always ways to make different choices as we're going. I think I agree. I'd rather see us start to dip our toe in and see what's what and keep making decisions as we go.
I think you brought up a really good point too, Gordon, when you said, we really need to get all of these other people that are beneficiaries of this service on board. I don't think they are paying their fair share, even though they panic every year and think that they are, but I don't think people are aware of where we are, the area that we cover. And that we're required to cover. I mean, when you hear that you have a call and we're going to Romulus for a call. I mean, there has to be a dollar value that needs to be adjusted for this. Because it's, to me, it's like having insurance on your house. You may never need it, but you certainly want it when you have it. And that's kind of how I look at this situation. We all want that first service healthcare. We all want fire and ambulance. And we may never need it, but when we need it, we need it. And it's getting really expensive. And I can see where village residents may feel like we are carrying the brunt of everything, the liability, and it needs to be spread over a wider area. So we might need to also convey to our village people, yeah, I mean, our coverage area is massive. It's huge. I don't think people realize where we go and exactly what we do. I think at the state of the village, that map with all of the pinpoints on it as to where the ambulance literally goes and where our service calls are, where it was a really good guideline to give. I think people were shocked by that. So, I think we need more money from people, and I think they need to be on board and say, yeah, we're willing to pay more money for that service. There's
Yeah.
got to be a better way to do it, where it's more equal in the services that people are getting.
Well, there's at least a couple of different thoughts I have there. One is, I think you're entirely right that this will sound at first blush like the village is going after a $9 million, $8 million, whatever, facility for the village. When this is a 3 towns and a village multi-municipality build that will then be shared cost-wise across those. And so I think that'll be important to keep hitting home for residents. So it's not we're asking the village residents to take this on, we're asking all of the residents in this area to take this on.
Warden, is there any way for do legislatures know that are giving us this grants or grants that we may be eligible for? Do they realize our hub and exactly what we're covering? Can we pull grant money from other municipalities? No.
Our legislators are aware. And surprisingly enough, our federal legislators are probably more aware than many of our state legislators. Although our state legislators, I know that Anna and Leah are well aware. But if you asked, assembly member so-and-so from the Catskills, they would just assume, like everyone else, that we have a small coverage area with a small department.
Right, that we're just running around in circles.
It should all be taken care of locally, basically. And that's starting to change a little bit slowly. Fine, it's gonna take downstate, as most things do in New York. You get Westchester County, you get Long Island, you get some of them to start to understand that because they're losing volunteers and because they're losing paid staff. And the wealthy areas that can afford whatever they need to afford just don't have bodies because, in the case of EMS, all of their paramedics are leaving ambulance service for fire or police because they have state retirement. So it's just, there's lots of these little issues that are all part of the bigger issue. But no, I mean, if you, I don't want to speak ill of anyone on the record, but the awareness is not nearly what it should be, but it's growing. It's better than it was 5 years ago.
Right.
I think the other side of that is then what you were saying, Warden, of like, we need to start this conversation with the towns and start having that conversation. And we've done a rethink of how fire cost sharing works. We've talked about an EMS cost sharing adjustment. It might be time to really think more deeply about that as we're moving into a large capital project. And all of that's gonna require a lot of conversations with the towns to help them understand where we're going, why we're doing it.
So going back to where we're going and why we're doing it though, I do like the idea of starting to move forward, but I don't like the idea of saying, all right, now we're committed. Before we have architect, engineer, like before we have a plan. To say, you know, we're in per penny, in per pound, I think is, you know, strategically not the way to go. But I do think it's time to start moving forward, right? If we have a plan, we can say this is what we're doing, and it has a price tag, and we can talk real numbers and you know, concrete next steps. I think that's meaningful. And at that point, then we really are, you know, do we move forward? Do we fully commit? Kind of a mode. To me, that feels a little premature right now. I think there's stages between here and there. But I agree that it's time to start moving.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It also gives all the other principals involved an idea of where we're going, right?
So
So,
Well, let me ask you this then. This is how my brain works, right? Hypothetical. I don't want to speak anything into the universe that I don't want to have happen. Right? Hypothetically, we're not able to get the price tag for what our departments need. We're not able to get it under 7.
Right.
And hypothetically, we don't get the V Fire grant. And hypothetically, the towns say this is a terrible idea. We don't want to kick it. And we're going to fight you every step of the way.
Right.
Do we not build this thing?
I don't think we can bond $3.5 million from village taxpayers on their own.
no, and
And it's a choice between that or, right, and basically giving the towns a contract that they won't sign and losing. Right, those contracts. I mean, that puts us in a real difficult position.
They have to sign the fire contracts.
Sure.
So that we allocate the money to the fire state.
I don't think we can allocate 3.5. I mean, I'm sure there's some limit there. Even if we can, I'm not sure that that's ethical, frankly.
That's why I asked the question. We have 2 departments that are irreplaceable in the region. Right, that need new facilities. And so if we have that uncomfortable situation, and I don't anticipate this, I don't expect it at all. But if this was 2014, right?
Yeah.
And our relationship with the towns was what it was then. But this is do we believe, the royal we, do we believe that this is as necessary an effort as water?
Okay, so let me take how your brain works and add how my brain works, which is, I think that's an interesting question, but I think there's a lot of distance to travel between here and there. If we get to that point and we have given them no choice and we have given them no say, and we have just sort of plopped it on everyone's lap, then I would say, no, that's unethical, that's a bridge too far. Okay. If in the interim, we have done our best to sort of loop them in on decision making and right, give them opportunities for input, and we've really tried every avenue we can to get more grants and to sort of value engineer this thing, then I'd be a lot more on the fence, right? Then I would feel like this is, at that point, the ethics switch, right? We need the department to work, both of them. And so I think then we have sort of an obligation to continue, but it really depends on what we do in the interim. I wouldn't feel good about just dropping that on someone.
You know, I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
the hypothetical is, 13 months from now. Right?
But on the other hand, if we get to that point and we can't value engineer it down below 15 million. Right, then I think we need a reset, right? We need to go back to, oh God, can we rehab? You know what I mean? We need to start over fully at that point. And I don't want to speak anything in the universe either, right? But I mean, I feel like there's a lot of those hopefully edge case bizarro scenarios that we don't know.
Just for frame of reference, 3.5 million at 3% over 30 years is $220,000 a year. So there's 4 municipalities involved, whereas a 50 to 60 municipality, if we were evenly split, never mind the call volume stuff. So it's not It's not 200,000 municipality. We're talking about a $50,000 to $60,000 a year increase to everyone's budget, which is not nothing. But it's also gone up multiples of that in the last decade.
Yeah.
For EMS, it's 10%. It's
Right.
It's not an abnormal increase, frankly.
We could certainly see a $60,000 annual increase to somebody's budget if we had to start staffing that second ambulance.
Right. Or if the 3-call rolling averages did some weird things, you know, someone got hit and not lucky, whatever. Yeah, I don't think that's impossible, but I think what I'm aiming to say really is that I'd like to start moving, but not commit to an end game yet until we have sort of our pieces in a row and our, you know, everything together.
I mean, I think I'm with you, like, the trying to play out every possible scenario is really just impossible
You
at
don't
this
know.
point, but we should move forward and we should start having these conversations with the towns and make it into this whole run up to budget time, because we need to start explaining it, bringing them on. Because yeah, if we've done our due diligence and explained it all the way through, and we get to the end and there's still a lot of gnashing of teeth. I think it just gets rolled into the contract, like I don't see any other way. It is necessary, we do need it. And we should be building all the possible goodwill as we go and then figure out where we land at the end, but it's impossible to tell right now without more details. So the first thing to do is get some more of those details.
The towns were present last week. When the congressman came down, everyone seemed very excited, so that's a good thing.
It was very nice.
At least we're off to a good start on that side.
Although, did you notice that his awards for this year were 5 instead of 3.5?
Yeah, that says Congress up the ask limit. Yeah. Okay, well, I will,
Thank you, Dusty.
thanks, Dustin. I will start muddying the waters. Did you have anything?
Not really, I mean, I agree, moving forward. Getting buy-in, because people are going to have to pay for this and the village. People should not have to be solely responsible for it. But understanding what that number is, I think is really important. And for those towns also to understand what that number is. So I think we should start moving to start that ball rolling. To build something.
I'll say one other, when we talk about cost sharing, just to get really in the details for 1 second. On the fire side, we did a lot of the cost sharing based on property tax. And it made a lot of sense in the fire because you're preserving property, but now we're talking about a purely capital expense. That the village is going to share based on property tax. I think it brings up the question again of on the EMS side, if property tax makes more of a prominent role in that cost sharing, formula that we have. So,
You can
something.
think about it as like school taxes. Not every person that pays school tax has a kid.
Right.
But
Yeah.
they're paying into that kid's future, so. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not too much tax.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is trying to figure out what the limit is on how much, say, the other townships have on, you're saying, you know, everybody should have a voice, but is it really going to be an equal voice? You know, I mean, it is part of the village, but we should be very clear on what they get to say.
Okay. Any other items of old business? New business, we have to approve this temporary water contract with Grassroots.
We did have the municipal solutions contract too. I don't know where you're gonna put that.
It's next.
Okay.
Business. This agreement is the same as last year's, hence the typo with 2023. We'll have to change that, Jess. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read it. Nothing has changed other than the dates from last year. And so I would entertain a motion to approve the temporary water agreement with Grassroots for the festival from the dates of June 11th to August 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Kind of a non sequitur, sort of, did they respond to the our previous letter?
Which previous letter?
Oh, it's like that. The no, I don't remember what it was, they were asking for water, right? Was
The water district, and we were
Yeah.
sorting out who to cover.
That
which
letter
costs.
was from the town. So
Oh, right, didn't we write a letter to the town? The
We-
town wrote a letter.
the town wrote a letter to us as formal request for the formation of the district, and we responded.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything back since.
Okay.
So that's some we're grinding through in process, but clearly we'll be ready for the festival this year.
Right, I mean, I guess I bring it up because I was happy to see this going through, because at that point it felt like they were gonna try and rush that through. So I have to see that that's not.
18 months to build out a water district. So I mean, it's
I do want to say, I don't know, Maureen, if the question was fully answered about the pricing. It's the 7703 is like the base rate. So like how we, like with water, you pay a base rate and then you pay per water usage on top. I don't know if you've ever looked at how the water pricing gets fully broken out on the card that comes through, but it does say like everyone pays a flat fee every month and then you pay water use on top of it. So it's the same kind of structure here. They'll pay the 7703 the one time as a base rate, and then they'll pay for the amount of water they use on top.
comments or questions? Okay, then all in favor of approving the temporary water agreement with Grassroots for this year's festival, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a renewal contract with Municipal Solutions. Same as it is every year. They do general municipal financial services, AKA they are our fiscal agent. Whenever we need anything done with respect to borrowing. And so, let's see, I don't see any changes from last year. And so I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign this contract for the fiscal year beginning June 1.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And last but not least, for new business, we have the new New York State Pro Housing Community Designation.
Yes, so this is a program the state has been rolling out recently, I think in the past 6 or 12 months. What to say about it? I think there's a couple different ways you can look at this program. I think there is one way which might be more compelling to myself and others who are genuinely wanting to see more housing in the community, which I think could be most of the board. In which it is kind of a feel-good proclamation of this community being pro-housing and wanting to state that visibly and possibly encourage people to take note and come and look at that as an opportunity for building additional housing. On top of that, however, the real carrot here is that the state has already connected a number of funding sources to a community being a pro-housing community and going through the process of being designated as such. And I can only imagine we'll continue to add more funding sources, more funding programs, giving you additional points on applications in those regards, or potentially limiting it to only communities that have gone through this program. So it's something that I feel like there's a little space on my plate to try and work through and see if we would qualify. But I wanted to have a conversation with the board first to see if that sounds interesting to us. If there's any questions or comments or concerns, I've done a little bit of looking into this. I have a little bit of knowledge of what goes into this and what kind of comes out the other side. So far in the county, Dryden, I believe town and village have gone through the program certification, as well as Ithaca, but now I don't remember if that was a city or the town. So there's already a couple of our neighboring municipalities have gone through this. At a very high level, basically what it requires of us is to fill out some standardized information about our zoning and our local housing permit approvals over the past 5 years, which is something I think Tom and I can take on. And I suspect that may be all it is for us, actually, because most of the criteria is have you demonstrated increasing your housing stock recently or over the past year or 3 years, and the permits that are getting pulled for 46 South, I'm fairly sure will already hit the targets they have for us. If for some reason that weren't to be the case, the other opportunity right now is to pass a resolution that's a very kind of pie in the sky, like we support pro housing, but it doesn't actually commit you to anything in particular sort of resolution. But like I said, I don't even think it would require that. I think the housing that we have building would qualify us as is. We just have to kind of fill out the paperwork.
And what's the benefit to us for this designation?
The benefit is basically any grant funding we want to go after. I'm imagining over the next couple of years,
Would fall under that umbrella.
more and more of it's going to require this, either require it or you will not be as favorable an application without having it. Already quite a bit of things like New York Forward funding, downtown revitalization funding, a whole bunch of different types of funding streams are all requiring or encouraging this. And I believe there might even be new funding sources that are only targeted at communities that have passed this sort of a thing. So I think it's an opportunity where there's a lot of grant funding out there. If and when we want to go after it, are going to require this of us anyhow. And I think we're also in a place where through the zoning work we've done, through the conversation we've been having, we're already in a really good spot to go after this. So I think it's, as long as we're on board with going after it, I think it's really just finding some time for me and Tom to fill out some paperwork and submit it to the state.
Hey, if you're willing to put one more thing in it, so.
It says housing in the headline, so
Yeah.
I'm stuck with it now.
I'm wondering if there's like once, I guess this is looked at, if there is like some kind of requirement that you have to show growth over a certain amount of time to continue with that designation. That's where I would.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they're gonna ask for that housing permit approval data going forward. And if our zoning were to change, they'd ask us to submit that as well. It's a little unclear to me what it will look like going forward. I mean, we can't grow forever and ever. And I think there's already communities in New York State, many, in fact, where growth is not possible. You could throw out your zoning and there still would be growth. So I think the easy answer is like, if you're showing growth, that makes it obvious. If you're not, I think it's still, from the little limited amount that I've been doing like review on this and understanding it, still unclear how they're going to handle that. Basically, I think part of it is just proclaiming as a community through a resolution that you're interested in it. I imagine they might get more strict on what zoning, if the zoning does seem like it's the limiting factor, they might start, requiring to see certain things in your zoning, or else you wouldn't hit the requirements. So unclear where this would all go, but they're kind of starting it, and I think we're the easy case right now. So I'm actually interested to kind of throw our hat in the ring and then see where it plays out over time.
If you want to get everything together for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll start. I mean, the first thing to do is they asked to just email in and say, we'd like to start it. So I'll kick that off and see where it follows. Got to go fill in some spreadsheets and hand it back to them. See what happens.
Sounds good. Any other items of new business? Thanks, Matt. Okay, that brings us to our second public comment period.
Based on several things that you brought up, a question of when you talked about Ben brought up about taxation for the new fire hall and EMS, that it seems like if making a deal with the other municipalities, those that are in the village are also town of Ulysses, so it's sort of double jeopardy being taxed twice. Or if it were to be something that they needed to raise our, raise the budget to come up with that amount of money, that's an increase.
It's not double jeopardy because the town has to assess their ambulance fees on a separate line item on their property taxes, so it only applies to town properties outside the village. Same for fire. On the inside the village, all of it's wrapped into the general property tax. There's no separate line item for fire or ambulance, but towns have to separate that out.
And mentioned about another race that's going to take place this month, and it reminded me that when people plan for these races, they need to ask for permission to close certain streets or the route, preventing traffic. I'm wondering about having a conversation with the 5K race that happened in June, about them considering starting at the middle schools, come up the bus route to avoid necessarily funeral home. I was trying to attend a memorial service there that morning, and it was difficult to get there. And then as we gathered afterwards, it was very difficult and uncomfortable. It was wonderful to see the children and all the joy and everything that took place there. But if they could avoid massively by posting it perhaps at the middle school, and going up that bus route and then down South Street.
That's a good idea.
That would,
I think that's the
yeah, yeah, it would be nice to avoid that, we never know if there's gonna be a funeral that day, but just to avoid that in the future, which makes me think of another issue. A number of years ago, there was an issue with a house further down in South Street. There was erecting a fence to prevent people stepping on the grass in their property from the road. When they were constructing the sidewalks that need to be repaired around the entrance of 46 South Street, they have put stakes there with reflective tape on it, which prevents you from being able to pull over if you need to get around, which happened to me twice last week or the week before, when they're working on trees on the other side. You could not move over to be over on that shoulder to get past. And it prevents ours from doing that. Are those there? I assume they were put up to prevent people from pulling over when they pour the cement. But could those be removed for safety again, so that cars can move to the right if they need, as they're going out on South Street?
Give that to Tom.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, those are certainly temporary. I just don't know how long they need to be up.
Yeah, and then mentioning the police station undergoing some renovation. Is that accessible? Is there an accessibility entrance to the police station? Other than the entrance up here where you need to go
Through, it would be up the ramp and through the village office.
Okay. And then Bill Bay was here at one of the meetings talking about implementing a CPR course. Has that moved forward? Is that been set?
I think he did one.
Thank you.
Since that meeting when you mentioned he was doing it, I don't know, let me catch up with him, I haven't seen an,
I haven't seen any advertisement about it.
I haven't advertised, but it doesn't mean it isn't on his webpage, so I will connect with him and see if the schedule is available. Thank you.
What's the webpage for that?
It's on our village website, it's the Department of EMS department.
Oh,
Yeah, but he's got control to data zone because it's very active, so I don't know. if he's
A couple weeks ago.
I think he did as well, but I don't want to say for sure. I think it would be worth checking. They also do have an EMS department Facebook page, which may be updated with
I have
worth
no-
checking. But I think we can let Jess be the official word on it.
I'm sorry, can you repeat briefly where the barriers are of the on South Street that are problematic?
Either side of the entrance into the.
Oh, it's great. Thank you. Thanks for coming to work today.
So he does have a training and education page on the EMS portion of the village website with a list of classes that are offered. And blank training calendar. Um,
I do think you're right. I think there was one. It may have been held for someone specific
I think
or
it
something.
was
It might
for
not have
fire.
been public.
I think it might have.
There's also a way to sign up for these classes and then you give your information. And I'm assuming that there's follow-up. That would be something to check on is when someone signs up for a class. How is that person followed up with?
I was just thinking, bring two over to get a free press.
Yeah.
Article, so that might be.
Oh, it'll be handy for us to know as well.
I think it'd be great for like students, high school students to be able to do something before summer starts. So that they can, have training, formal training on some of the jobs that they actually work.
Any other public comment or questions? All right, well, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss current and pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.